Hi everyone, I'm Kennan.
And I'm Sam. Recently sold my Boxster Spider on Cars and Bids, and the hunt for the next sports car has begun.
And today we're going to be answering a question that's on a lot of enthusiasts' minds. If you have around $100,000 to spend on a sports car, should you spend your money on a newer Porsche 911, or should you spend your money on a heavily depreciated Lamborghini?
Let's see if we can decide which.
Let's do it. Before we get going, que sorpresa, this Gallardo is currently for sale being auctioned live on Cars and Bids. This is a 2004 Gallardo that has 17,200 miles and it has the original factory Cassiopeia wheels, which look magnificent. It's also been kept by the same owner since 2007 and it's always lived in California. And if you've been in the market for a Gallardo, after you finish watching this video, click the link in the description below where you can head to the live auction of this one where you can bid on it and buy it only on Cars and Bids. Okay, Sam, what car have you brought today?
So this is a 991.2 base Carrera cab.
Okay, so not an S.
Not an S. This is the smallest motor, the cheapest one you can get. And this was a turbo motor though, so they're all Carrera turbos now.
Right.
But this car represents the bread and butter of sports cars, right? The basic 911, you got comfort, PDK, good turbo motor, the power feels good, it feels good on the highway. I mean, it sort of does everything that you'd want a sports car to do, but you could also daily it.
Right, that's one of the great benefits. And this, so yeah, this one's PDK, because you can get it with a 7-speed manual too, correct?
You could get it with a 7-speed manual, very rare on the base Carreras
models,
especially,
yeah.
Just given, you know, the type of buyer for a base. But
yes.
The PDK is amazing, obviously. It's the standard in my mind for a dual clutch transmission.
Yeah,
I mean,
agreed.
bulletproof, handles things well. For a turbo motor, you barely feel any lag. The transmission kicks in so quickly. And it's just a comfortable, enjoyable car.
And as you know, as you're aging, you're finding that comfort seems to be like a focus, because your previous car, the Boxster Spider, not the most comfortable ride necessarily.
You know, I daily drove an Audi R8 for 2 years, and I don't think I realized quite how comfortable that was as a sports car, because when I got my Boxster Spider, I said, same thing, gonna keep dailying it.
Yeah.
And about 3 days later, I decided that there's no way I'm dailying that around. I mean, the front was too low, it was too much, you know, wind buffeting in the cabin, everything, yeah, the silly top, I couldn't park it anywhere. Everything about it made it undailyable, but this is the daily sports car.
Yes, it is. But admittedly, it's a kind of common choice. In our friend group, particularly from the guy who's really tall and wears 2 t-shirts, you get a lot of crap for it if this is what you got to replace the Boxster
I mean,
Spider.
even me remotely thinking about getting a 911, I have been relentlessly harassed, getting sent all kinds of outrageous cars that I should get instead. And I don't disagree. I think this is almost too safe of a choice, but when on paper, this is the choice. I want something more comfortable, more usable, something that I can use and go to Home Depot with or whatever it may be doing errands around town. And this, you could do that in.
Yeah, let's talk about the Lamborghini a little bit. So first gen Gallardo, this specific one is an 04, so it's a really early production 04 too. But it comes kind of how you wanted. Cassiopeias, which I think we can agree are one of the best wheels Lamborghini ever put on a car. I think they look incredible.
Perfectly suited.
Granted, they've been refinished in chrome in this case, not to my personal liking, but still excellent. It is an E-gear, not a manual, which is something to consider. It's a dated transmission that feels that way, but the big thing is you get a 5-liter, almost 500 horsepower, naturally aspirated V10, and like you said, people look at it like a Lamborghini because it is a Lamborghini.
Right. I mean, you know, 3-liter turbo flat 6, V10.
Yeah,
you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Come on.
And something about the early ones, they just sound, they have a howl to them that's so special, and it's a killer car.
Oh, it's so cool.
It is crazy that this car's sticker price was substantially more than this one's was new, but now they are kind of worth about the same. So,
which is amazing, because I often look at these and say, how is that so cheap? And I often look at these and say the opposite. How is that so expensive? I mean, it's a 7-year-old base Carrera at this point, and it's almost 100 grand still.
No, exactly. The value proposition is interesting. But then again, if you bought this, you wouldn't necessarily lose a lot on it. Right. You know? But then again, these also aren't going to depreciate much more. So they're kind of in the same spot in that regard. Now that said, because this is a Lamborghini, inevitably you will have more issues to deal with, maintenance-wise, probably, than this car.
I don't know if you're doing a clutch on a PDK 911.
Not exactly, but these things are relatively reliable as exotic cars go. It's much more similar to your R8 in that, like, the Germans did a lot of the engineering. Admittedly, there are some electronic quirks to first-gen Gallardos, but nonetheless, compared to a lot of other exotic cars, it is relatively stout.
So the Germans did the engineering and they let the Italians do the electronics on a Friday afternoon.
Right, well, they did the styling first, and then they also told the Italians they had to do it, and then, like, forgetting their homework at the last minute, they're like, oh no, we have to do the electronics, quick, put it together. And that seems to be what happened. They slapped some Audi parts in there, which those ones function. But, you know, I guess it can be a little bit temperamental. But still, nonetheless, like you said, Lamborghini NA V10.
Can't match that badge and that motor.
No, you can't. Well, the most important thing about these cars is the way they drive. So let's go for a drive.
Let's do it. All right, out on the road, driving the base Carrera. Beautiful sunny day here in Southern California. Never bad to be driving a Porsche 911 convertible, no matter what trim it is. You know, this is a very interesting car. I think the 991.2 is the sweet spot in the 911 lineup. The 991.1, I don't know if you can hear that Gallardo, but man, that's a differentiating factor between these two in a massive way. Back to what I was saying. The 991.1 showed its age a little bit in the technology and whatnot, and the 991.2 really took everything great about the 991.1 and added things like Apple CarPlay and a more modern looking steering wheel with a smaller airbag cover, and of course the turbo engines that came to all of the cars actually. So the base Carrera then became a turbo. Obviously not a real 911 turbo the way it is supposed to be. You know, the 991.2 turbo was a 550 horsepower all-wheel drive monster. This is obviously a 370 horsepower rear-wheel drive, lovely GT car. I mean, that's what this car does well. You could drive this car from here to San Francisco, you know, 9 hours on the highway, and enjoy every second of it. You got the technology, you got the comfort, but you do not have the sound of that Gallardo. Oh man, it just sounds insane. That is the thing missing with this car. And to be honest, all 911s to an extent. I am a Porsche guy. I love the brand. I love every car pretty much that they've ever made. There's some clunkers in there, but I really love the brand. And if I didn't have friends to influence me to make poor decisions, I'd probably end up with a 911 for the rest of my life. That being said, I do have the friends I have, and they would mock me relentlessly if I bought a base Carrera. I can't imagine hearing the end of it from Doug, and he's very persistent. So that's what has me thinking, I gotta have a little fun. I gotta do something a little crazy while I'm still young. I can have a 911 for the rest of my life, but maybe a Gallardo, just live a little, live on the wild side, and enjoy that glorious 5-liter V10. Woo! It launches off the line. Oh yeah. It handles like a 911 should. I do think the 992 has gotten a little big and a little more disconnected. To me, this was the end, the 991.2. And man, it feels quick. The turbo kicks in really quick. The PDK must mask the turbo a good bit because it really doesn't feel like a turbo car. I mean, you don't notice the turbo except for a little bit of whistle, but it's kind of fun. And you got this gauge in the dash that you can spool the turbo up with a little rev, and then it gives you your boost. It's sort of a fun game. But that being said, this car makes almost no sound. When you get on it full throttle on the highway, on the back roads, you hear a whooshing and some turbo noise and all that, but there is certainly something left to be craving on that. Coming out of the Boxster Spyder, which used the 991.1 Carrera S motor, it was the NA 3.8, which then they dropped down to the turbo 3-liter, and you definitely lost a little bit of that emotion behind it. You just don't get any of that raw pops and crackles and all that stuff. And the Boxster Spyder did a little too much pops and crackles, but it was fun and it did lead to the emotion of the driving experience. I have no doubt that I could beat Kennan if this was a time trial down this road, I could beat him every single time. Given it's Kennan, maybe I could beat him in any car with him in any car. It just lacks the emotion that that car has, even looking at it. I'm just can't stop staring at the rear end of that car. All the streaks and the grills and the slats, the little tiny wing that comes up. It's just character, and that car has so much character. I think there is a trade-off for that character, because doing a clutch on a Gallardo would be a lot less fun than doing no service to a 911, but I think that trade-off could be worth it. I'm lucky enough to have spent a lot of time in this particular model of 991.2 Carrera, and I mean, it just does everything well. It's the reason that it's the dailyable sports car, but it's not an exotic car, and that is absolutely an exotic car.
All right. Time to drive the Lamborghini Gallardo. And right away, the thing that dominates the experience more than anything else, without question, is that engine. 5-liter naturally aspirated V10, 494 horsepower, basically 500 horsepower, 372 foot-pounds of torque, I think, or 374 foot-pounds of torque, regardless. A glorious engine. And really the figures don't matter, because it's all about, that sound. That sound is so good. I have always felt that the pre-LP Gallardo sounds better than the later ones, and it's just, that even firing order, it's so good. Oh my word, what a sound. But that's really not the only excellent part about this car. The chassis is really good. The all-wheel drive system really instills a lot of confidence. You can push this car pretty hard, and it's not going to let you down. The brakes also are excellent. This car has the steel brakes. You could also get the carbon ceramic brakes on this car. I've driven cars with those, and it's spooky. When you use them for the first time, especially when they're cold, they don't do much, so it's pretty terrifying. But this car with the steels, pedal is so progressive, it's really nice. The steering is also excellent. It's really precise, it weights up very well. It's really good. And the steering wheel, I love the steering wheel. The flat bottom steering wheel was so exotic at the time when this car came out. And it's just lovely. The other things I like about this car, like the general dynamics of the car are very good. It feels so exotic. And it is exotic, but what you don't expect is how livable this car is. It's nowhere near as livable as that Porsche. I am sure that Sam is having a wonderful time being nice and comfortable, but I'm having a heck of a lot more fun in this car. Now, of course, the elephant in the room with this particular car is that it's an E-gear example. So it's not the gated manual. And that said, the E-gear comes with some disadvantages. It's clunky, it feels a little old. The clutch wear is higher. It's certainly more of a maintenance concern. It's one of the things you really have to think about compared to a modern car like the Porsche with its PDK system. But it's fun, and if you work with it a little bit, you blip the downshifts, it's surprisingly fun, and I actually kind of enjoy it. That said, this car also could be had with a gated manual transmission. They carry a premium over the E-gear cars, obviously, but not as much as you would think. And you can ultimately convert the E-gear cars if you really want to. And so you can get the car as a manual, and you get that extra level of driving experience, which is fantastic. But as it sits, it's way more usable than I thought an exotic car like this would be. These cars are, I did a lot of research because I've always heard the 04s in particular have more problems than the later cars. That might be the case, but it doesn't seem like it's anything terribly catastrophic. So this car, for the money, it's this or an F1 360, this is a substantially more exotic experience. Oh, and that engine is just, it's just sublime. It really is. You basically, the reason you buy this car, I think, is like a lot of exotic cars, the way it looks and the way it sounds, and the fact that it happens to drive nicely and is very usable is just a nice added bonus. But Gallardo, what a lovely experience.
A little harder to get out of that one.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a Lamborghini. Man, that engine is just unbelievable.
Oh,
it sounds so
the sound is
good.
just insane.
Yeah.
I would start talking and then I'd hear you accelerate and it was over. I couldn't keep my train of thought.
Exactly. Well, my turn to drive this?
Yeah.
Okay.
An honor. Let's go.
Let's go. It's a different experience.
Right.
We'll put it that way.
A little less emotion. Kennan, you're pissing off the Model Ys of San Diego here.
Good. I've never driven a base 911 in typical Kennan fashion, only turbos and GT3s. But
never even an S, a 4S.
wow,
None of that.
It gets up though. It is not slow.
I'm telling you.
So the big change with this car compared to its predecessor, in addition to being turbocharged, obviously, like the big advantage it got was it went up in horsepower a little bit. I think it went up 20 horsepower, but it got a lot more torque. I think it went up 50 foot-pounds of torque.
Wow. Is it 50?
Yeah, it's
That's
quite
amazing.
a bit. Yeah, quite a bit compared to its predecessor.
I don't think you really feel the turbo on this car either. Like
Not really.
not to a normal turbo lag, you know.
No, it's not like the Fiat 500 apart. Like Filippo's car, you put it in gear and it's like you press it, you wait.
Right.
Wow, there
Here
it is. All of a sudden, yeah, it just comes out of nowhere. But
I mean, it's got a ton of torque, and I'm surprised that it's only 370 horsepower. And I know that Porsche always seems to be
a little
more than it is, but
Yes.
this one in particular seems like it.
This is so livable. The ride in this car is so comfortable.
I mean, this is just a dailyable car, right?
Totally.
It's like a dailyable two-door that when you want to have fun, you can throw it into corners and it handles it very well. But it's not anything crazy.
That's the beauty of the 911 is if you want that craziness, you can get a GT3, you can get a turbo, you can get more performance. But for where this car sits in its value, it's like it's just a nice daily. Which
Right.
I know sounds crazy to a lot of people, but you could definitely use this car as a daily driver.
100%. You know my complaint with my Audi RS5 that I had, that they took a 2-liter turbocharged car that, you know, suburban wealthy 17-year-olds get, and they added a big motor and they added suspension and all that, but it was really like a dressed up normal car. This is the base that all those amazing cars are built off of. Like the GT3s and the Turbo S, it's the same thing, and this is a hell of a place to have as your baseline car.
It is. It is. And just like when Filippo and I drove the base Boxster versus your Spider, like the DNA translates to the other cars. Like you drive this and then you drive a GT3, it's like you can tell like where it all comes from. But the base DNA is really good.
Yeah.
It's really strong.
It's a reason it hasn't changed that much in a very long time.
That is exactly right. Just little bits at a time. Man, look at the handling though. Oh. It's so sharp.
Right? You
Even
can push this into some serious corners.
Yeah, you can really get moving. Yeah, the handling is just so nice and balanced. And to have the top down, I know the cab is not as desirable. For a lot of people want the coupe.
Yeah.
But
And
honestly,
I
where
do
we
agree.
live, yeah, I agree. From a looks perspective, for a weight perspective, for a variety of things. But for where we live, and like if you want a car to do everything, which is kind of what you want, I mean, kind of hard to argue. And you can really drive this thing pretty hard.
Right? I mean, you could throw this into corners.
Yeah.
You can rev it out. It revs nicely. I do think the sound is obviously where it's lacking compared to the 0.1 in the Carrera S with that, or even the base Carrera with that NA motor. That did have the sound. The turbo definitely eats all of your exhaust note.
It does.
But you get that torque, so it's a bit of a trade-off.
It is a bit of a trade-off. But nonetheless, the rest of the car, like the brakes feel great, the chassis is great. The build quality is very Porsche. I love this steering wheel.
Oh, so good.
It's so good.
That was the best improvement, 0.1 to 0.2.
Absolutely.
Brought this interior up 20 years.
Yep, totally. That horrible push-pull steering wheel on the really early, like, dot
giant
ones.
airbag cover.
Oh, yeah, this steering wheel is so much nicer. And, the styling of the car is excellent. I've always liked the 991. I think you feel the same way.
Yep.
But, yeah, it is a very compelling car. All in all, as you would expect, a very nice package.
Lovely. All right, Kennan, I think it's time
I think it's time you've earned the right to drive the Gallardo.
It's V10 time for Sam.
It's V10 time.
Get into the driver's seat. Oh man, you got little legs, Kennan.
I got small legs. Manual seats.
Getting into the driver's seat of any Lamborghini is a good thing.
Yes, that is true.
What's
Just like
that, pumps?
8 turns of the cranker.
Oh, that was pretty quick,
That
actually.
was faster.
Immediately just feels exotic. But maybe that's how I feel.
No, it is exotic. That windshield is super low, all the leather, and like look how nice all the leather looks. None of it looks cheesy or weird, like it all kind of makes sense. Of course, you have all the Audi MMI stuff and the climate control. Well, yeah, it's to be expected.
Okay, driving the Gallardo. Let's go.
Now, you've driven a Gallardo once before in your life?
I don't know that I have.
Okay.
I can't imagine. I mean, obviously, I have a ton of seat time in the R8.
Yes.
I did, 20,000 miles in that car, and I loved every second of it. It was a V8. It was an auto. It was a cab.
Yeah, that was my favorite part about your ownership experience, was you were upset about people constantly asking you the questions. Is it a V10? Is it a manual?
Every time. I even had a homeless guy ask me as he was crossing the street.
I remember you telling me, like,
Got a V10?
I'm getting chirped by homeless guys.
Right. I mean, once you're getting chirped by homeless guys, it's time to upgrade to a man's engine.
See, what you just did there, we went through a dip. One of the great things about the Gallardo, I think, is that front end is super short, so you can clear a lot.
For sure.
But also, now the one thing about the 04s is they did not get the suspension lift system that came in the later cars. So that's one of the things about an 04. But still, I don't really think you need it. If you can clear that, you can clear a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good point about that front overhang, because I never had a problem in the R8, and I think that was like a false sense of confidence when I got the Boxster Spider, because that is a low car, the Spider, and I was scraping everywhere, in places that I was used to having fine clearance on. Wow, the buzz of the V10 though.
I know, it really gives you it's a whole new thing.
See how this... It's interesting, that 911 with the turbo, the power definitely hits harder.
Yeah, way harder, and immediately too.
Immediately.
This, you have to wind this engine out.
Right. It's just got a motion to it though, like it's buzzy in this cabin, and it's
exotic.
A cool view.
Yeah.
That is the thing, the 911's a sports car, this is an exotic car. It's certainly less comfortable, obviously, but it's not uncomfortable.
No, that's the thing. It's like, for a Lamborghini, not uncomfortable. But you're right. Like the suspension, knocks on stuff. Like it's substantially less refined feeling than the Porsche.
Right. It's what you want.
But that's what you want. It's a Lamborghini. That's why I love having a sport mode in this car. Like, isn't the whole thing kind of
right? What is non-sport mode in a Lamborghini?
Yeah. Oh God, that sound. Yep, it won't.
Okay.
Oh, that sound right there. That.
Oh man, it's so cool.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. I mean, it's a Lamborghini.
Yep.
Audi's first real product with Lamborghini.
Oh, it's like.
And the symphony that's occurring behind us is really what we're in it for,
Oh, it's so good.
This is so kind to the folks behind us that they get to hear this perfect engine.
And I truly stand by it. I think the pre-LP cars have a special tonality to them that the later cars kind of lost. It's definitely, it's very usable and very approachable. And that was the whole design brief that's behind this car. It was supposed to be a car that wasn't the big V12 car. It was a lot more usable, and it has a character all its own comparatively. Even though it's more practical, that usually makes a car more boring. But in this case, it's just damn cool.
It is so cool. It is the R8 in cooler clothing and with a better soundtrack, and I think that's the coolest thing in the world. I mean, like, what else do you want?
What more could you want?
My old bone's getting out of that one.
Well, Sam, the Lamborghini Gallardo.
Oh, what a special, special car.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I can't believe you can get these cars for $100 grand. The driving experience is...
I can't imagine that lasts, especially if you have one, and this was an E-Gear, but if you had one with a gated manual, this is such a special car.
So special. So I think we've kind of come to a similar conclusion. If you had to pick, what would you do?
I mean, it's the Gallardo.
Yeah.
Like if you can only have one car, which is a reality for most people, this is the Swiss Army knife to do it. I mean, it does everything. It does the comfort really well. And then the sporty pretty well.
Yep.
But man, if you're lucky enough to have a beater daily driver and you have this for the weekends, That's everything.
Yep, absolutely. And again, these are kind of like 85-ish to 100, but if you got one for 85 and then got, spent that extra money on like a Cayenne Turbo, boom, two-car
That's how you
solution.
spend 100 grand.
That's the conclusion. If you want one car, the 911 still remains the car of choice, but if you're brave and you have another car to use every day, the Lamborghini Gallardo, what a way to go.
Such a good car.
Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.